Hey everyone, this is Darken, and I'm going to be reviewing the new Huion GT-220 tablet monitor. And this thing seems pretty sweet. It's a IPS display, 21.5 inches, 2048 levels of pressure. So it seems pretty good. It seems like it's going to be some good competition for Wacom. So yeah, I'll dive right in and start talking about it. Alright, so this is the new Huion GT-220. And as you can see, it's an IPS display, so the colors look pretty good. The viewing angle looks really good. It kind of looked like this was aluminum, but it's actually just plastic. You have your buttons down here. Now the problem with these buttons, depending on the angle that you have this set up as, it can be incredibly hard to push these, or actually impossible to push them. If it was angled a little bit higher, I actually wouldn't be able to push these at all. As it is right now, it's really hard to kind of push those buttons, so that can be a problem when you're working on this. And then also, whenever you're trying to, move the display up and down, a lot of people mention this, but if you move it down too much, it's actually resting on the cords, so every time you try and touch it, it'll wobble back and forth because it's actually on top of the cords in the back. So at about here is the limit before it starts hitting some of the cords. You might be able to go a little bit lower, but so yeah, that's definitely a huge design flaw. I'm not sure how that got past everybody, but yeah, that was like one of the first things I noticed. That and trying to push these buttons. So at the angle it is right now, I can't actually push the buttons. I'd have to either lift it or move it off the table so that there's nothing under it. That way you can get to the menu where you can change the brightness and contrast and all that stuff. It's a pretty thin, monitor. You can see down here, this is where all the cords are. They're really close to the bottom, which is why it's causing the problem with the stand there. And then that may end up damaging the cords too, because they're so low that they have to kind of bend a lot, which could damage the cords over time. Yeah, the one thing I'm missing are the express keys on the side. So you can see this is why I'm actually using a Nostromo, because there are no buttons. So that's definitely something I wish it had, maybe in the future, to add some express keys, but since this is a desktop display, that's not as much of a problem, because you're going to have your keyboard there anyway since it's on your desktop. Express keys are usually more important for mobility because, that way you don't have to bring around a keyboard or a Nostromo or anything like that. But I do find that a lot of times when I sit down, I'll automatically put my hand over here because that's where the express keys usually are. And then I have to realize, oh yeah, I'm not on a tablet with express keys. But it would be nice to have them, but I don't really think that you have to have them. Now, one of the bad things about this is that dust will get caught underneath the screen. So if you look, you can see some of these pieces of dust here. And then there's a bunch, you can see some there and there. There's some there, right there above the folder icon. And then they're kind of sprinkled throughout the entire computer. There's some over here. There's a big one right there. And apparently this is pretty common. Supposedly it's from shipping the unit. But if that's the case, then it would probably be better if they actually put some sort of a plastic wrap around the computer or something, around the display. Because when I got it, it just had some because when I got it, it didn't have any plastic wrap around it or anything. It was just sort of this packing material that was just loosely put on there. So, I mean, obviously it's going to be easy for dust to get in there. So I would really suggest that they start shipping these sealed in some sort of a plastic so you don't get these. And apparently the only way to get rid of all these little specks of dust is if you turn the unit around, unscrew it, and completely take it apart, and then you can access the screen below and clean it up. Now here's the Stylus. It's wireless. You can recharge it. You just plug in the USB into the back there to charge it. It has 2 trigger buttons. It's fairly lightweight. It seems pretty, standard for a stylus. I don't think it's quite as high end as the Wacom one, but it's still better than some of the other ones that come with, like the Fujitsu ST5112. That one was a really tiny stylus. At least this one's a lot bigger, so your hand doesn't cramp up as much. Alright, so I'll start talking about this a little bit. Now, when I first got this, I actually had a lot of problems because, I tried to install this on my Mac, and the drivers wouldn't work. It said it came with a disc, but there was no disc in the box. Apparently, some customs law for China is that they're not allowed to send people discs. So, I went on their site and downloaded the drivers, tried to install them, got an error message. I tried several times to install. I tried Googling it to see if I could find some solutions. I tried some stuff. I still never got the drivers to install. So, which actually doesn't really matter, because in order to attach this, you need either VGA or HDMI, and my Mac desktop has neither. So I'd have to go try and find an adapter somewhere. So luckily I have a PC that I installed this to. The drivers worked for PC. Now the only problem is that the PC this is hooked up to is like 8 years old. So I mean, it's a really slow and pretty lame computer. I think it only has 4 gigs of RAM. Yeah, it's just really old and slow. So it does get a little laggy. It lags more because of the recording software. It doesn't actually lag that much in person when I'm not trying to record the screen, which is why I'm also going to do some kind of over-the-shoulder shots of me trying to paint on it so you can see what it looks like real time. But, after I set this up, yeah, the first thing I noticed is that, let me go to Photoshop. I'll open the little utility here. Alright, so this is all of the options you can do. So, there's not very many things you can change on this. You can change the buttons, left, middle, right, and then keyboard. If you go to the keyboard keys, you can pick, all the keys or none, and you can do the modifiers like Alt, Control, Shift. Now, the problem I've noticed is that if I select Alt, which is color picker in Photoshop, I always have the first button set to that. And if I go in Photoshop, hit the button, you'll notice how it opened the brush palette, which is right click, which is what I have the second button set to. So even though I'm pressing the first button, it doesn't do Alt, which is what it's supposed to do. And then sometimes it'll think I'm pressing the second button, even though I'm clicking the first button. So that's really frustrating because I can't get the first button to work. And I looked online, it seems like a lot of people have this problem. So I'm not sure what's going on with that. So that kind of sucks. You can change the pressure sensitivity here, harder or softer. I have it set softer because for some reason it feels like it's hard to go full range with this. It could be because of the recording software. Maybe that's making some stuff, do something weird with it. But when I'm just painting here, it seems to work pretty well. But when I was doing an actual painting demo, for some reason I was just having a hard time, going completely opaque with it. So that's why I set the sensitivity to a really soft sensitivity. The other problem is the calibration of the stylus. I actually can't get it to go, directly under the pointer here. And then of course, when you kind of move over to the sides, it changes where it is. It's actually not too bad. A lot of tablets, if you go up to the edges, the stylus or the cursor will start to go crazy. It does a little bit. You'll notice how it's kind of bouncing up and down when you go up to the top. The sides, it doesn't really do that. You go down to the bottom, it doesn't really bounce that much either. Same with the sides. This one does a little bit more. It gets a little jittery. But yeah, it'll start to go off center. So right now, when I'm kind of in the middle, the actual cursor is popping up above where my stylus is. But then as I go over here, it goes way below. I go here, it goes a little bit to the right. Now, even if I move my head to try and put it over the center, because I know that, obviously, if you're looking from the side over this way, it's not going to line up correctly. But if I go directly over it to see where it is, it definitely drifts a lot compared to center. So center, it's way above. Over here on the side, it's way below. So that's something that's kind of a little frustrating, because you try and press something and it doesn't press because it's not lined up correctly. In terms of the actual thickness of the screen, as to compared to where the cursor is, it seems to be okay. I don't really have a problem with that. I know some people have problems with that, but I haven't really noticed anything. As for actually drawing with it, it seems to respond well. Even though I am using a slower computer, it doesn't really lag or do anything crazy. I think it looks pretty good. Now there is the one problem of the squiggly lines. I don't know if this is a Photoshop problem or if it's something else, but if you draw like little lines and then you zoom in, they look really squiggly. Actually, let me do a new image, a higher res image, so you can zoom in more. Alright, so let's say you're drawing this line and you zoom in on it, and you'll notice how it's super squiggly. Now, of course, if you're zoomed in and you draw a line, it's going to be smooth, but then when you zoom out and try to draw that same line, it has all these really wobbly edges to it. Now, people are complaining about this with I think the Intuos and then also the companion. I never really noticed this problem, just because I don't do line art and I don't do like really fine little drawings or anything like that. I'm usually drawing with big shapes and more painterly. So yeah, I had never actually noticed this, but yeah, if you do try it, you can definitely see it. So if you are someone who does a lot of inking, that might be a problem. Now, I'm not sure if this is just Photoshop that this happens in, or if it's all painting programs, but definitely in Photoshop you have that little squiggly line problem. Alright, in terms of the drawing surface, let me go back and create a new file again. So it came with this protective cover on it, which has a little bit of a matte surface to it. So whenever you're drawing, it does have a little more tooth to it. And you can take this off. It just has little stickies on the corner. So you take that off, and now you're painting on the glass. Obviously, it's a lot smoother. The problem I have with drawing on the glass, other than the fact that I'm always paranoid that I'll end up scratching the actual screen, is that sometimes when you're drawing, it'll kind of get stuck to it a little bit, and it'll make a squeaking noise. So I mean, that can get a little annoying. I don't know if I can make it do it right now, but I noticed that when I was doing the demo last night, because I took it off for a while because I wanted to see what it felt like, and yeah, a lot of times it was making some squeaking noises, which was kind of weird. A lot of people may prefer to work on this more matte surface instead of the smooth glass. Even the glass isn't as smooth as some other tablets that I've worked with. I think the Asus EP121, I think that one was really smooth. This one doesn't feel as smooth. It's a little toothier. I think I actually prefer working on top of this screen protector, which is good because then you don't have to worry about scratching your actual screen. And even though this has like a more of a matte feel to it, it actually is also smoother because it doesn't grip the pen and make that squeaking noise. I started this painting earlier, and I actually filmed the entire process, but the painting ended up being about 30 minutes long, and this video is already 30 minutes long, so I didn't think anyone wanted to sit through an hour-long review, so I cut out most of the beginning, but I still wanted to show some painting being done with the Huion. So I just started painting some random generic fantasy guy. I didn't really have time to sit down and figure out what I wanted to paint or design anything fancy. So it's just kind of the typical fantasy dude. So yeah, I mean, painting with this, it seems really good. Once you get past the other problems like the stylus button is not working and the chords and all that, and once you get past all the driver issues, once you're actually in Photoshop and painting, it seems to be a very good tablet monitor. I don't really see any problems in terms of the actual execution in Photoshop. I am having a little bit of a problem with the Nostromo though, because I haven't used a Nostromo in like 4 years. So my workflow is completely different. So sometimes I end up forgetting which button is which, and I end up opening windows and doing things that I don't actually mean to do. So, may see some little windows pop up that I don't actually do anything with. Now, a lot of people always ask about the heat of the surface of the screen. Now, the companion, never got hot at all. This one starts to get a little warm, but I haven't used it for hours on end. I think I've probably used it for maybe in 45 minutes to an hour long straight, and it's still getting pretty warm. I don't think it was anything to really worry about, but again, I haven't really tested it. Painting like 5 or 6 hours straight. So if I continue to work on it, I'll try and update the review if there are any changes in terms of the surface heat. I usually wear gloves anyway because of my carpal tunnel syndrome, so I guess that might help a little bit. Yeah, I mean, for a tablet that's only $1,000, or actually I think it's cheaper on Amazon, that's less than half the price, or more than half the price of a Wacom. So it's definitely a good option if you don't have the money to purchase a Wacom. Now, I've never actually used any of the big desktop Cintiqs from Wacom, like the 22 HD or even the smaller one, the 13 HD. I've never used those, but I do have the companion, so I can kind of compare the performance to that. I've also used a number of other tablet PCs, the Fujitsu ST5112, the Asus EP121. I've also tried the Surface Pro. I only tried the first Surface Pro, so I'm not sure how 2 and 3 are. But in terms of the actual performance, I think this is better than the Surface Pro. I didn't really like that one at all. The companion is still better than this one, I think. But it also has a lot to do with the desktop itself. Since this is a really old computer, again, it's using the hardware from that. And, if I had a better, faster computer, this would probably perform better. But, I still think it's a good alternative to the Wacom. Yeah, this guy's pose is getting pretty boring, since I didn't really sit down and plan anything out. I just had him kind of standing here with his shield. But maybe I'll switch it up a little bit, maybe have his leg out some, just so that the pose isn't so static. I should probably also mention some of the other problems that I've had with other programs. So, I'm using CS4 right now because, this is an older computer, and sometimes, running CC is a little hard because I'll run out of RAM or something like that. But, I tried installing Photoshop CC 2014, and whenever I tried to use it, it actually wouldn't work at all. Like, whenever I tried to paint in the program, nothing would show up, and then sometimes a straight line would shoot across the screen. And so I went around and tried to find some new drivers, and I was already using the newest drivers that are on the Huion site. And I found that they had some new drivers specifically for CC 2014 on their Tumblr. And so I downloaded those drivers, and that allowed Photoshop CC 2014 to work, but then it caused CS4 to no longer work. So I had to choose, which program I wanted to work. And since this is an older computer, I have problems with CC sometimes. So I had to uninstall those drivers and go back to the other drivers on their main site. So yeah, I mean, there are definitely some driver issues with this. And trying to fix them or get support is a little hard as well, because this company is in China, and so when I got my GT-220 in the mail and tried to install it on my Mac, and I was getting that error where I couldn't even install the drivers at all, I went on their site to see if there was some support or something like that. And if you go to the support section, all of their numbers are for people living in China. So I mean, obviously I can't really call them, and they only have 2 email addresses on their site, and they both go to specific people. So if you do have problems, it seems like it might be hard to get a reply, because it's going to go to one of those 2 specific people, and then you of course have to wait until they're awake and they're at work and they go through all their emails, which could be a lot considering they only have 2 people going through their emails. So I emailed those 2 people, and I also emailed the person who sent me this unit. I never heard back from the 2 people that are listed on the website. The person who sent me this GT-220 replied about the driver problem that I was having on my Mac, and they basically just gave me a link to something I had Googled, because I Googled the problem to try and fix it myself, and I found some stuff online, and I tried those, but of course none of them worked. And their support was to give me that same link again to that thing that I had Googled. So of course that didn't work, and yeah, so I never actually got the drivers on my Mac to work ever. I also went and looked at the manual again, and it says that if you go to their site, they have live chat tech support. But when I went to the site, there's no live chat button anywhere. I'm assuming that maybe when it's off hours, they delete the button and doesn't show up or something like that. I don't know, but yeah, I never found the chat button anywhere. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out if there's anything else I forgot to talk about. I don't remember if I mentioned which other applications do or don't work. I tried Paint Tool Sai, and I couldn't get it to work at all. I think I read somewhere else online that someone had that problem too, where Paint Tool Sai doesn't actually work with this unit. I'm not sure about Painter. I don't have Painter, so I can't really test it. I mean, I guess I could probably maybe try and find a trial version somewhere and download that, but yeah, I'm not sure about that. But I definitely know Paint Tool Sai doesn't work. Alright, so I'm actually going to do a little bit on the video camera here, since my computer is really old, so trying to run the screen recording program and Photoshop at the same time is causing it to look like there's a lot of lag, even though there's not really lag when I'm not running screen recording programs at the same time. So I'm just going to do a little bit on here, but I'm trying to do this one-handed, so it might be a little bit slower with me trying to switch through these different things. Or maybe I should just try and do some different brushes so you can kind of see the response time. I mean, obviously it's going to depend on your desktop, since that's what it's using. But even though this is an old computer with only 4 gigs of RAM, I still have a pretty good response. There's some of the chalk brushes. So yeah, I mean, I think it's still pretty good. I'm going to go and resize this guy's head a little bit. It's getting pretty tiny. Do a copy, merge, and paste. Oops. And free transform. There, now he's not quite such a midget head. Might even drop this pauldron down a little bit. Alright, so I think that about wraps it up for the review. So just to recap, I think this will be a good tablet monitor. I don't think it's really quite there yet. I think they need to kind of do some more testing and some more tweaking. A lot of the problems can probably be fixed by new drivers that come out in the future. But as it is right now, the stylus, the first button seems to have a lot of problems. And it's not just one or two people. It seems to be quite a few people. They have problems with dust getting under the screen, and it's kind of a pain to try and fix it. There aren't any of the express keys. There's the problem with the cords if it's sitting on the cords all the time. But if they can fix those few issues, I think it'll be a really good tablet monitor. That'll be some good competition for Wacom. The screen itself seems to be nice. The contrast seems to be pretty good. The colors are pretty good. The viewing angle is good. So yeah, if they can just get those few problems fixed, I think it'll be a really good alternative to Wacom, especially since it's half the price, which is always nice. But yeah, so I think that's about it, and I hope you enjoyed the review, and I'll see you guys next time. All right, bye.